I was supposed to have a Hida scan Friday, but for whatever reason they asked to move it to today, and I decided that was actually a great thing because it'll save me from having to go back again in 3 days. I've truly had enough driving for Dallas for, in a week I think I made 3 trips. Oh, and I'll get to that in a second. Today was supposed to be 2 things. It was supposed to be an EEG, which is like I really don't know what it stands for actually. Anyways, I'll put it down there so you can see what it was. And then, okay, so that's at one health system. And then we were going to go over to my other health system, and I had a GI appointment. So we did that. We went over to the GI appointment, but I also had Xrays to get done for rheumatology. And so went in and got, okay, well that's what it was supposed to be. And then I ended up, I needed, just one blood draw for GI. And then we ended up, I was supposed to have a Hida scan Friday, but for whatever reason they asked to move it to today, and I decided that was actually a great thing because it'll save me from having to go back again in 3 days. I've truly had enough driving for Dallas for, in a week I think I made 3 trips. Oh, and I'll get to that in a second. So anyways, so I changed it. So we went to the EEG, and that was at 10:30. So I had to leave work at, okay, I slept horrible last night. My sugar dropping, it was like, I think it alarmed at 55 like 6 different times within a 4-hour period. It was really rough. I woke up at 5, I was out of the house by 5:30, I was at work by 6, I stayed until 9, and then I left, and I drove to pick up my mom, and then we went on to the first health system. So we get there and we futzed around. They've got a really pretty atrium out front, and they've got all sorts of neat stuff in and around, and they've got a barber and a cupcake shop and a Walgreens and kind of like a mini cafeteria, and oh my gosh, a smoothie place, a gift shop. They've got 4 other things that are down there too. It was really neat. So anyways, we futzed around for a little bit, and then we went upstairs. My place is on the 2nd floor. And so I get up there, and from the end of the hallway, I can see my door, which is at the other end of the hallway. And I knew it was dark. And so we get there, doors are locked, lights are off, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did I mess up? Because this particular health system actually has 2 satellites, so I was at one of the satellites, but not the main one. And so I called the receptionist, and I was like, which is at the other location. And so I was like, you know, blah, 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 this is who I am, and this is what I'm supposed to be getting, and there's nobody here, and the doors are locked. And so she was like, hold on a second. So she's gone like 2 seconds, and she comes back, and she was like, the guy's parking now, and he'll be in there in just a minute. And then we hung up, and then he calls me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I got stuck in traffic. Traffic was awful this morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's no problem at all. I mean, he was literally like 2 minutes late. It wasn't anything. So he apologized profusely and got everything set up. And, okay, when I was told I had to have an EEG, I talked to, hold on, my fingers are locked up. Oh man. Do that a little different here. I'm having to hold with both hands because my arms are so tired. Okay. So what I was told in just talking about the appointment is that I was going to have a row of electrodes put here, and then I have to lay down, and then I have to like reach some hoobie mental space, and then the test lasts an hour. And so that's what I was expecting. Why would I expect anything different? So instead, 28 electrodes were put on my head. And I mean, you guys know how long my hair is, and they were like everywhere. So they were like in here, back here, in the middle, everywhere. It was crazy. So 28 electrodes. So this is what it looked like. Craziness. And so I guess I was just talking to the tech while he was putting all the goopy cream stuff and electrodes on my noggin. And we were just chit-chatting about whatever. And I was like, oh, blah, 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 you know, EEG. Electroencephalogram. I just don't think that's right. Anyways, blah, 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 you know, what are we really testing for here? Because I had originally thought it was an adrenaline test that I'm supposed to have. And then I found out later that that is not correct at all. And I totally forgot where I was at. Okay, so I asked him and I was like, well, what does an EEG do? And he was like, oh, well, we're going to test you to see if you have seizures. And I was like, for reals? I mean, we never talked about that. We were the whirlwind on that appointment, though. And I was like, oh my gosh, really, really? And he was like, yeah, there's lots of different kinds of seizures. And he's like, sometimes it can mimic the symptoms of POTS, and it can do all sorts of other things. So anyways, it was super interesting. And like, I was so ignorant when it comes to seizures, and it's like the only ones that I know, I guess, are the grand mal seizures, you know, where you kind of go rigid and you shake and completely disoriented and amnesia and the whole thing. And he was like, no, there's tons and tons of different kinds of seizures. It was very interesting. Not really anything I'd thought of before. I'd been asked quite a few times just due to the autoimmune stuff that I have. So it'll be super interesting to see what he comes up with. Okay, so I get that done, have all the electrodes taken off, and my brain just keeps blanking out. I'm so tired. All the electrodes off. Oh my gosh. And then he's like scrubbing my head, trying to get it off. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. And he was like, oh my goodness, your hair's so long. It's so pretty. And it was so adorable. Oh my gosh, it was totally delightful. And okay, so since my thought of the little row of electrodes going on here, I didn't know I was pretty much going to be like head gooped by sonogram gel, cream, thicker stuff. But I was just like, oh my lord. So thankfully I had a clip that I could put it up, but it was awful. So we left that health system. Actually, we sat down and I ate part of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we got a smoothie, but something in there totally upset my stomach, so I wasn't able to eat a huge amount. And then we go over to GI, and we go up to the appointment, and there was hardly anybody else waiting there. I mean, I was probably waiting 2 minutes before they came and got me. It was awesome. And okay. Oh my god. Been a long day. So we get in the back. I met a super nice nurse. I really, really liked her. She was super sweet and down to earth. And so I got all checked in and then waited a few minutes maybe. I mean, I didn't even bring anything to do. I'm sure I was answering emails on my phone. And she came in and she kind of like opens the door now and then just stares at me. Because, I mean, she can always tell if things are good or bad. And she was like, well, you don't look good. And we talked about the whole dehydration thing and blah, blah, blah. We talked about cardiology and what's going on with that. And I finally gave her the glitter poop rainbow from my parents. She was just, oh my god, she was so thrilled. It was super funny, and she was like, this is the best present I've ever gotten from a patient. It was really, really sweet. So we're talking about the whole thing, and she was like, dehydration. She's like, when's the last time you went for a fill-up? And I was like, at least 3 weeks ago. And she was like, well, how's everything moving? And I was like, stopped again a week and a half ago, stopped again 3 days ago. I do the stuff and get things moving along and blah, blah, blah. And then she sat there and she was like, what did she say? I think it was something like, so you're either going to go to the ER and get fluids, or I'm going to put you in the hospital tomorrow. And I was like, oh no, thank you. And she's like super like smiley. There was nothing, like there was nothing. And I was like, oh, come on. And she was like, you know, the hospital has been horrible. It was completely full for almost 2 weeks. Really bad breakout of the flu here. So she's like, I think they're finally getting it under control. And she's like, you can hardly feed because nothing is moving. And she's like, you're having trouble with your eye. She's like, your muscle problems are all back. You're probably low on potassium again. You're fighting sugar crashes left and right. And she's like, and your dehydration is, she's like, I really think like a root of a lot of problems that's going on. And I said I did too. And I'm starting to have skin problems again because I'm so dehydrated. It's just like bumpies, like little bumpies. Anyways. And so she was like, so you're either making a plan to go to the emergency room or I'm admitting you. And I was like, okay. I think we're gonna go Saturday morning. Maybe it won't be so crowded. We'll see. But, so after GI, I had to have 1 blood test done, so they used my good vein for the blood test. And then I had to have Xrays done, 6 or 7, because with the arthritis showing up in my lower spine, we're assuming everything is connected that's having trouble. So, oh my gosh, I literally keep blanking. Just totally blanking. Oh, man. So, the X-rays were done of my neck, my upper back, and my hips. So we're trying to see how things are affected now. And so I actually got some of those results back like immediately. The only blood test that was run was prealbumin and it was fine. And then I've got answers back on the hip x-rays, not the neck part stuff yet. And it showed the same stuff that my back did. What was it? Degenerative disc disease, facet arthropathy, bilateral, and hips showed arthritis too. So it's pretty much everything, which makes sense. Especially with my collagen being a poopy. Thank you so much, EDS. So anyways, so we got all that done. And then we go back over to the first health system. And we were about an hour early for my appointment. So So we sat in the cafeteria and I worked for an hour remotely and got almost everything handled that I needed to for the day. And then we went running upstairs at 5 o'clock because that's when my Hida scan was rescheduled for. And so I ended up having to get an IV, which I was pretty certain, well, I knew I had had one the first test, even though this one was a little bit different. And the phlebotomist had already used my good vein, and I was just like, oh crap, Ola. And so he had to put an IV in my good vein, but he had to back it up where I'd already, from where I'd already been stuck. And I was so thankful that the phlebotomist earlier didn't blow it, because most people blow that vein. And so I had 2 people get into it today, and neither one of them blew it, so whoop whoop, that's good stuff. So he got an IV in, and then I was loaded into this machine, like some type of radiography machine. Let's see. So I got in the machine. It looks like this. Mom took a picture for me before I was out. And so I was loaded in there and I wasn't high enough, and so it was just a guy who's a nuclear tech, and he put almost like a wedge pillow underneath me. That one wasn't big enough, so he put another wedge pillow underneath me. And then I was so high because I just wasn't big enough for the machine. So I was high enough for the machine like my tummy was, but then the top part of me, like the pillow wasn't in the right spot, the one that was like kind of built into the table. And so he ended up having to take that off and then give me a regular pillow. And then so I just had to he injected radioactive tracer in my IV. And then, okay, look at the picture again. So you see how my arms are kind of wrapped behind me? So I couldn't, be touching the machine and all of that stuff. Little did I know that this test was going to be an hour and a half long. About 5 minutes into it, my arms were going numb because they kept slipping out of socket. And then everything was going numb. My hands and feet were super cold, but I couldn't wear stuff. I could have had socks on, but I didn't wear socks today. That wasn't a good plan. And I had the blanket, which you can see in the picture, but the guy he tried. He tried. And so looks at all these pictures, and then all of a sudden he comes in and he was like, vanilla or chocolate? And I'm like, vanilla or chocolate what? Because the last thing I want is something to eat at the moment. And he was like, oh, you have to drink a Boost. And then the test runs for another 30 minutes. And I was just like, how much of the Boost do I have to get down? And he was like, well, all of it. And I was like, how much of the Boost do I have to get down? And he was like, well, at least half, but do the best you can. And I was like, of course I will. But I also didn't want to yak it up either, because my system was I was so done at this point. Oh my gosh, I was so done. And so I drank a little bit more than half. Those things gross me out so bad now. And Sure and Boost and premium protein and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, they're great for what they are, but they give me thrush super bad. And that's just... Dehydration is so ridiculous. Oh my gosh. So anyways, I got some of the Boost down. And then he started the test again for another 30 minutes. And it scans, and we were finally done. So Mom had come in at that point and taken the picture, so it was actually the end, not the beginning. I got up. We finally got to leave. Oh my gosh, almost got sick in the bathroom, but nobody wants to be sick in public bathrooms. I did the whole gag thing, and oh gosh, I could shut it down. I was like, just no, don't do it. Oh my gosh. And I'd already missed a dose of it, well, my second dose of anti-nausea. Oh my gosh. So we walked back and got the car in the parking garage and got out. Drove home, so it was another hour in the car to get home. It was a very, very, very long day. And my hair hurt because of that gel stuff was all dried, like, on my hair. And so, like, it was up on the top of my head, and that was awful. Oh my gosh, I was so tired. Oh, so tired. So, wait for results on the rest of the stuff. Hope it all turns out fabulous. I'm sure it will. So, hopefully no complications or any of that good stuff. Keep you posted on the next set. Bye.